Thank you, everyone. I'm actually very happy that South Sudan just spoke because we had this connection between South Sudan and the area that I'm going to discuss, especially what is in the picture here. This is one of the border city between Nigeria and Cameroon. So, and it's a frontline city that was occupied in 2015 by Boko Haram for 3 months, and it was renamed as the City of Islam before the government recovered the area. So, and why is it important? And why civilian risk prevalence is quite important in the area that once considered as relatively peaceful, and yet it seems that life there is also no different from the war zone where exchange between the military and state, occur. So when you see this picture, you will see the local vigilante group. I took this picture December 2019. In the afternoon, this is one of the main center of the city. And but you see them carry gun and everybody was going around, everything was normal. This is to demonstrate how frontline look like. So in this frontline, mostly what we discuss is we always talk about how people move from the rural area to urban side because of conflict. Indeed, a lot of people who work at the border side move from rural area to urban center as the nearest one that is considered relatively safe. And most of the people who move from this area, they are farmers who have developed their skills. Their livelihood depend on lakes, river, farmland, and that is what they do. So when they find themselves in the city, of course, a different experience in terms of navigating urban economy. So I will present briefly Lake Chad Basin. It's a basin that is well known over the years. It's been a lot of climate related issue. And then the existence or emergence of Boko Haram, Islamic State of West African province, which came much more later. And more recently, the emergence of Ansaru, which is related to Al Qaeda, all combined together is making this zone to become ungovernable. So you could see the statistic of displaced person in Nigeria alone, over 4 point something million, 4.8 million population displaced around the Lake Chad. And the Lake Chad itself is about serving 40 million population before the crisis. And in addition to that, the Cameroon itself has also, if you can see from the population there, quite a lot of displacement, over 381,000. I visited one of the camp in 2016. We have about 280,000 Nigeria in the refugee camp there. So there are quite a lot of scatter around this place. But over time, this country, Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, they came together, formed multinational joint task force, and they fought together to fight against these terrorists and drove them a bit into the rural part of and the forest. One of the forests is also a recognized UNESCO site, which Boko Haram still currently occupy. So with this issue, the frontline city where people move to also experience quite a lot because the element of government, the presence of state is still very weak. State functioning is also not that strong, but they have very peculiar markets, and they also their agrarian community would depend on cross-border movement and activities to sustain themselves. As you can see there, you can see the level of Nigeria on aggregate in terms of food security, hunger, and you can see also Cameroon. But this is just an average, which is not also correspond to what is happening at the border side. So with this, I want to say what is the present state of things and why is it important to look at food insecurity in frontline cities. The first thing is, although the military successfully recover some area, for most of the large part of this area, still remain a battlefield between the state and non-state actors. Even where the military recover, occasionally the non-state armed groups still, stage attack there, and this control the behavior of civilians. Now, what is now more important is the issue of accessibility. The civilian population who move into the frontline city, this is a picture of me there in one of the humanitarian sites, and you could see there that it's already closed to show that the war is over. So this is the situation in many of these frontline cities where the government already declared victory, even though the situation still remains like compared to the rest. So in this place, as you could see, people could not access land, even not only in the rural area, but even in the neighboring side of the city, the local also have to survive. So this becomes very competitive. So the inaccessibility to this farmland, which is controlled by the armed group, create this source of risk preferences, which we will look at very soon. This is the conflict area within the 4 countries. I'm going to focus only on Nigeria and Cameroon, but they cannot be separated, and that is why I have to put the map there. Yes, I collected some data. It was a very long ethnographic study between 2016 up to June 2022. So sometimes I spend 6 months there. I come back, and I'm doing that consistently. So, but the data I'm going to discuss here is just a cross-sectional survey which was collected in 2019. Then the follow-up was interview and series of interview. I just want to discuss about the intervention which also came out of the Lake Chad Basin Stabilization Strategy, which is to map out two multidimensional approach formed by UN, AU, and then the governors of the region affected by conflict in the Lake Chad region. The idea is to have recovery, rehabilitation, and then sustainable peace. So through these activities, there are areas where predominantly displaced people live in the frontline area, which also receive intervention from the local NGOs and also from institutions like EU to do collaborative projects. So I just want to highlight what are the risk factors that drive people and why people want to move. The most important thing I want us to know from this is that people don't only move from rural area to urban area, but people move from urban area to rural area and stay within the same conflict zone. And the reason is because when people move from their farmland and they move to urban area, they could not survive. They have to think about what is alternative solution. So in this area, what happened is we have many civilians who would rather choose to go back to area controlled by armed group in order to survive. So one of the reasons cited, as you can see from my interview, is that there's rise in the price of food in the city, and they have limited availability to variety of food they can eat compared to what they experience where they are coming from. And then I discussed the issue of land scarcity in the state control area. The area recovered by the state also itself is very scarce to acquire land, and that's become very difficult. So, and then it's also uncertainty regarding every time government say, we've recovered this area, but each time people go there, as you can see in the map which I drew there, this is from 2011 up to 2022. I will show in the next slide. So people believe that, okay, every time you say we have covered this area, but when they plant, then the armed group come back again, destroy, or ask them to pay tax. They don't pay tax, they destroy their farm, their product and everything, and sometimes kill. So this creates this sort of uncertainties, as you can see in this slide, the quote, the crisis appear endless to me. We often hear that the government has cleared this area, but sometimes they come back and, they destroy everything. So they don't mind and go there. And they also see that there are some people who still live in that area controlled by armed group who are better than them because they can feed themselves, but they in the city could not feed themselves. So what are the targeted interventions that have been taking place? One of it, which I map out from the household survey, basically is we have housing, we have healthcare, then we have business skill acquisition. There are a variety of them. One of them is a tricycle business, which came much more later in the course of the conflict. The tricycle business was not so prominent in Nigeria until maybe in the last decade. So people embraced this, and then people were trained, displaced people were trained, especially the male ones, and then they tried to start driving along the city. And then there's also aspect of housing, low-cost housing, mostly in the remote part of the urban area, built for the people to live. And then the healthcare also took place, but with the support of the civil society. In the analysis here, I shows that the people who benefit from this intervention actually are much more better in terms of their decision whether to leave to the area controlled by armed group or to remain in the state control area. Okay. Then also in terms of who benefits from the intervention, I also find that young women especially, benefit much more than men, but only on housing and healthcare, not business and skill acquisition. So as you can see here, and then I also see that part of the training system or training program also made people to decide not to go to the area controlled by armed group. This is a result of who benefit and who does not benefit from the program. As you can see in this area, yeah, we do have more women who benefit than men, but in terms of skill acquisition, we do not really find any gender-specific effect. So this is the discussion. In the last part, we also find that the young mid-age adults benefit more from the skill acquisition training, and they are significantly likely to stay in the state control than moving to area controlled by armed group. Yeah, so what I want to say is that we observe people move to the remote area instead of staying in the city, and this has to be much more investigated in order for us to develop appropriate policy and action on a short term. And from this result, we can see that in the situation whereby it is not accessible for farmers to go to farm, there has to be an alternative, and this alternative has to really be created in line with the economy, the local economy in the front line. So this is an area that we really need to investigate the dynamics of the migration of farmers, people whose livelihood depend on access to land, access to river, lakes, and who find themselves in the frontline city and need to catch up with speed in order to survive. So instead of blocking the road, I think more important thing is the people in this region are interconnected with their culture, and it is important to open the border. If the border is open, they could visit their uncle in Cameroon and also have farming activities in this area. It's also important to look at, for instance, cooperative society. One of the important things which I observe in the course of the work, there are women who create this sort of cooperative society whereby you take the first contribution to start business, then the next person take, and then they do that to do business. But the challenge there is when you take this money, you use it to feed family, then it becomes problematic to actually earn from it. So if there's an established short time to combine cash transfer with investing in small-scale business, it could serve a temporary alternative measure, to salvage the situation pending the conflict to end. So as you can see, this is some of the activities from the elder's wife selling what we call milk from cow. And then this is the border side before you move from Nigeria to Cameroon, then from the other side. it is very important to allow people to move, despite the fact that there are crises in this area. One of the effects of that is it reduces the cost of moving from one place to another, which, as for instance, most of the people who sell items move from the other border. They also have to pay this security, and that makes the price of food items to rise. Thank you very much.